Well, good evening and welcome to another episode of Porch Talk. I am Paul W. Marino and I have with me here our good friend Tim Zalazzo. And I come on the air tonight with unhappy news. This is Friday the 4th, and yesterday on August 3rd, Ed died at 5:30 in the morning. We do not yet know the cause of death, but we certainly want to give our condolences to his wife and their children. And we want to bid Ed a very fond farewell. There will be no quiz tonight. The picture behind us is one taken in Italy, and it's a place that Ed loved to go. And I would like to start with a toast to Ed.
Okay, here you go.
We're going to miss you, old pal. Godspeed.
Yeah, when you called me last night, you two were Mr. Humor. I thought you guys were pulling a joke on me. I really did.
No.
And that's why I asked you a couple times.
That
Okay.
I think is something that you don't joke about.
Yeah, well, I mean, you sounded serious, and I mean, I went right into the first stage of grieving, denial. I figured, well, because the last few times I've been around Eddie, it seemed like he was getting better all the time. Mm-hmm. And he was on the road to recovery, He was doing his therapy as much as, he didn't enjoy it. But, yeah, I'm kind of shocked about it and kind of a little angry about a few things, too, that I didn't, stop in and see him a little more. I knew he was always dealing with stuff. And
Well, that happened with my father, too. When my Uncle Jimmy died, he was working on a job and he collapsed and he was taken to the hospital, and my father heard he was in the hospital and said, well, I'll go up after lunch, and he died in the morning. So my father never really forgave himself for not going, when he first heard about it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people deal with stuff like that, especially I've dealt with a lot of people who felt after someone died, the day before they weren't nice to them, and mm-hmm. they live with that guilt. I mean, so what did I learn of people dying close to me is, when my brother got killed, I was glad that, him and I always got along. We had a close relationship, mm-hmm. and, it's tough on people when they're sorting that all out. This woulda, coulda, shoulda, stuff, and but it takes a while.
And of course, the thing to remember is even if you parted with harsh words, you have to remember the person did love you after all, and probably did not take those harsh words to heart.
Yeah. But
if he did, you got a lot to answer for in the hereafter.
I mean, everyone deals with death and dying differently. They have these stages of denial and anger and bargaining and depression and acceptance. Mm-hmm. And some people don't. There's no linear thing there with that. Everyone deals with things differently. I can say that from what I knew of Ed, he lived a pretty good life,
Oh, yes.
I mean, I hope I make it to 82, so I'm not belittling that, mm-hmm. But he lived a good life. He loved politics. He loved
food.
Did
a lot of things that he enjoyed doing. He loved going to Italy.
Yeah, that was
to our sister city, and of course he played in the Drury band with my brother Ralph, and when the Aladdins lost their lead singer, he joined up and sang with them for a while.
Yeah, I found a picture that my wife had taken in the Clarksburg Senior Center. It was a real nice shot of him. I was trying to look for it to blow it up here tonight. Is a nice one. Ed was, you and him have been working on the community TV from, well, you were before, probably doing things before.
I was involved in public access long before he got involved.
What was his first gig that he was
He was a co-host on Let's Talk About It.
Okay, let's talk.
After Ron Boucher left. And then when Let's Talk About It ended, then we put our heads together and wanted to do a show about positive things that are happening in the community. And by the way, the show is not going off the air. I'm going to look around and find someone who is willing to co-host, and we will continue with it. And actually, I think for the next show, which is 2 weeks from today, I am going to try to get the person who ran the program at the MCLA Church Street Center about the hospital.
Oh,
North Adams Regional is going to reopen
Resurgence.
as a critical, I forget exactly what it is, critical, so it's CAH, Critical Access Hospital.
So that's if someone comes in, they can deal with them right there instead of
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to have 25 beds. They're going to open 5 of them first. Once those are filled, they'll open another 5 and another, and so on, up to 25.
Yeah, I read the article, and it was a little confusing with the federal regulations about highways. You know, how far you are from another BMC. It was a little confusing what they were getting at. I can't remember now if it was 20 miles or if it was a secondary or a primary road, or because I know if I have to go from where I live to BMC, I mean, if I'm moving pretty quick and it's, say, late at night, I could get there probably in 45 minutes. You know, or an ambulance could get there in 45 minutes.
Well, of course, Route 7, which I believe runs from Williamstown to Pittsfield, that used to be considered the type of road that you needed distance to the hospital.
That's a state highway.
Yeah, state highway. Well, now the rules have changed, so that's just a 2-lane highway. And now you need another hospital in the middle so that you don't have to send people down that way. Of course, even before that change happened, the ambulance didn't go that way from North Adams. It went down Route 8 to the second entrance to the Berkshire Mall, then went across that way, and then down 7 to the hospital.
That's the way I go to, if I'm going in Pittsfield, over on that side. I went to see a friend the other night, last Friday, and I went that way. Yeah, so Ed, I looked and tried to piece together, you know, when I filled in for you and him, and November 19th, well, August 20th, you were missing in action, but November 19th was when you were having your surgery.
Yes.
So, and that was one we talked about. It was pretty funny. That's one thing about, you know, we talk about death and dying. You can lose somebody, and for some people it's a devastating thing, depending on the situation and the romance, the specialness of it all. But no one can take away memories. And, you know, I went and watched that one.
Yeah.
And, you know, those memories are always going to be there. I mean, I don't know how long they'll be on the Northern Berkshire site, but it was nice being able to experience Ed, you know, for an hour. But you were having surgery then, November. We were waiting for, I thought it was your sister, but it was your brother.
My brother.
To call. And
I sent him, I forget, was it daily originally? Well, most days I sent him an update about how things were going. And I know that people in my class from high school wanted to know, so he sent it to somebody who sent it to them. He was also sending it to his children, our cousin Bonnie in South Carolina, and I guess she sent it out to her family. And there were people in the church, his church, who wanted to know. So,
Yeah, and then he was missing in action for a while, and actually that was just before he was getting ready to go over to Italy, and I guess he was up in Saratoga Springs, and that kind of was the beginning of it. I mean, people say that that's a peaceful way to go in your sleep. I don't know how peaceful it was, but it sure does sound like it if you're sleeping.
Well, my mother went in her sleep, and when she was talking about it, before it happened, obviously, she said probably the best thing that could happen is if I die in my sleep. And she lucked out. That's exactly what happened. And when I called my brothers to tell them, one of them said, "Oh dear," and the other said, "Oh God." And I reminded them that she had a good long run. She lived to be 100.
Really?
Yes, she did.
Wow, that's...
And she went just the way she wanted to
100,
in her sleep. And a few days before she went, my sister-in-law, her youngest daughter, and her daughter came to visit her in the nursing home.
So she wasn't at home. She was in the nursing home.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's everyone deals with it differently. It's inevitable. What's the old saying? There's two things you're not gonna...
Yeah, death and taxes.
Death and taxes. I mean, we all know that there's a certain amount of time here. It's just the mystery of when it's going to happen. Okay, and and sometimes there is different feelings involved with people getting angry, and the mystery of life. Why, and it's everyone deals with it differently, and it takes a lot of times, a year or so to really get over something. Sometimes you never get over it. You hear of these school shootings where these young kids are getting shot up, and you never. I don't think parents ever move on.
Probably not.
I mean, it's whether or not they get to that final stage of acceptance. I mean, you can't bring them back, Paul. But that's a tough one.
So, as I was saying, the good thing that's happening is the hospital is going to reopen. They're shooting for sometime in January of 2024.
Nice.
There are some steps they have to go through to make it happen, but this has been in the planning for quite a long time. And I must say, I behaved myself at the meeting. I went in there very tempted to ask, what took so long?
Where was the meeting? City Hall?
No, it was at the MCLA Church Street Center.
Oh, okay.
And the thing is that BMC was poised to buy the hospital back in 2014 when it was a 150-bed functioning hospital that was turning a profit.
Yeah, that's unusual.
In fact, what happened was that Northern Berkshire Healthcare, the parent company, had made a bad investment. They had bought a nursing home in Williamstown just before the real estate bubble broke. the bubble burst, they found themselves bankrupt.
Was that Sweetwood?
Yeah,
Or
Sweetbrook.
Sweetbrook.
And it's strange that they should be bankrupt because all of their sub-companies, the hospital, CHP, the wound clinic, the birthing center, and the mental health facility on the 4th floor, were all making money. They were all operating in the black. And they illegally closed the hospital. According to state law, you're supposed to do it on 3 months warning.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They did it on 3 days warning. Oh. So all those companies that were serving people closed, and BMC bought North Adams Regional Hospital, which was then no longer a functioning hospital.
Yeah, I thought they owned it.
It was just a building, so they bought it for a song. And okay, they reopened the emergency room. They reopened X-ray and the surgical suite and so on. But the bulk of the building, they began converting it into an office building.
Yeah, that's where I go for my doctor visits. And
Yeah.
you know, the emergency room is still there.
Yeah.
You know.
So why couldn't they reopen it then as a functioning hospital? All the equipment was there. All the beds were there. The equipment was there. No, they shut it down.
Well, the equipment and the beds, probably they're still there, I would hope.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the equipment's still there.
And so then anybody who needs hard medical care, you know, you can go to the emergency room, and if they need to admit you, they're going to send you to Pittsfield.
Yeah.
And the nurses there were upset because they were not hiring any more nurses to relieve the pressure on the ones who were now suddenly overworked. You know, they had nurses from North Adams they could have hired, but they didn't do that. And now all of a sudden, they're going to open it as a critical access hospital.
Critical access.
Which is good. Yeah. That's good. But
yeah, so when you say critical access, would that be ICU? You know?
It might be.
Okay.
But well, for instance, if you go in the emergency room and they want to admit you for observation, they do not have to send you all the way to Pittsfield. They will have, if one of those 25 beds is empty, they have a place where they can put you, and you can stay for a few days being observed. If you go in for surgery and they want to keep you overnight afterwards, they have a place to put you.
Yeah, so they're still doing surgery there. They're doing colonoscopy.
They're doing day surgery.
Yeah, what do they call it? When you say day surgery, there's a medical term they use for it.
Yeah, day surgery.
Outpatient. Yeah, you go in and get out, you know, the same day. Yeah. Well, you know, what's interesting was you brought up Williamstown. There's been some articles in the paper about Sweetwood. I think it's Sweetwood, the assisted living.
Yes.
Their population or capacity is at 50%, and the people who own it want to turn it into housing, rentals. Mm-hmm. And it's not zoned for that type of, in that area, that district. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. The people that are there, the 50% of capacity or occupancy, are a little concerned what lies ahead in the future. Mm-hmm. But I thought the people that lived there bought their units, and basically that, you know, they were there till they died, you know. So I don't know how they could say we're going to close that place down. So I don't know what's going to happen with. They're going to rezone it for families. Or just, I shouldn't say families, rentals, whatever happens.
Yeah, or more likely What's it when you buy your apartment?
A condo association?
Yes.
Yeah, down in Boston, where my son is, that they're all condo associations. You know, they're eight condos, 10 condos. And that's a little different than even up in Elpenwell, just up the road in Stamford, Vermont. I mean, up a little farther on the Stamford-Reesboro. You know, that's a association too. You're paying fees, and they're pretty stringent. You know, you start construction, they want your structure built within 6 months. You know, they tell you what you can't.
Oh, this is the place opposite.
It's like Dutch Hill. On both sides. It's on both sides. There's a development on the right before Dutch Hill, and then on the left. And I was just up there last week. There's a series of dirt roads up there they're really in good shape too. And there's some really nice houses.
Yeah, I was up there once when I was in high school, and I remember a lot of A-frames.
Yeah, there was some A-frames. I mean, I used to ski at Dutch Hill when I was young. Okay, that was and now I guess it's a cross-country. It's a business, cross-country ski place. They put in trails.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but getting into the condo, I mean, I didn't know that that's what they were going to do in Williamstown with that building. But
well, I don't know that that's what they're going to do.
Well, it makes sense. That would be I don't know exactly the 50% occupancy. What kind of contract they have. I was under the impression that they basically sold what they had or gave what they had and bought, moved into their kind of giving up their kind of not livelihood, but their financial backing.
I expect it's like the senior housing in North Adams. There are various places. There's St. Joe's Court, where you get a small apartment.
That's the church the one they did recently?
No,
St. Joe's
there's
Court.
one.
What's the one right up here by Cumberland Farms? It's real. I never really knew it was there, and my wife had a friend that I'm not going to get into it, but she was there, elderly lady, and that is a really nice location, right by the highway. You know, you don't even really know it's there. I don't know what the name of that is.
Yeah, Mohawk Forest.
Mohawk Forest. Well, it's not.
There's Mohawk Forest.
It's not the big project.
Yeah, but that's the
this
housing
is all senior.
Up there. I don't think those are senior housing, but Holy Family, down by Holy Family Church in the West End, there is a building that is dedicated to
I was there
senior
too.
housing.
I helped move one of them out. Matter of fact, yeah, I helped move her out up to right where Mohawk Forest. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're all nice. They're set up for seniors. They're pretty much. It's a senior. Maybe people with disabilities. I'm not sure, but it's a really well kept up place. And I don't know. The city owns that. Is that part of the?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because I believe the high rise down on Ashland Street. Actually, there's two of them. Those were built probably by the city to be senior housing. Of course, it's not strictly senior housing anymore. They're letting in a lot of other people. There is a great deal of drug sales going on.
Yeah, well, the
there.
latest articles were hitting on that. People their safety was a big issue. People didn't feel safe there with some of the things going on. Yeah, and actually I drove through the Mohawk Forest, the project. I cut through to get up to Kemp Ave. You can go. I forgot how many units are in that project.
Oh, yes.
And they all look,
but they are families there.
yeah, and they all look pretty. They looked like they were well kept. And but I was surprised how many units were there. There's a lot of units. See, out west, when I did a big project with solar, we were doing domestic hot water in the city of Pueblo, right by the New Mexico border. We never put all the units together. We interspersed them throughout the community, duplexes, triplexes. The biggest was fiveplexes, And the reasoning was that there wasn't a big project. They wanted to integrate them into the community, so they would take more pride in their property. You know, I don't know how that project ended up going, but I know we produced more domestic hot water than they could use. So it was I was apprentice pipe fitting at that time, and the pay was good. This was back in the late '70s. The pay was you had to pay the going rate, prevailing wage. So.
By the way, if you are tired of listening to the two of us drone on like this, please, or if you have something, a particular memory you'd like to bring up about Ed Morandi, please give us a call, 664-4408, and we will be happy to chat with you for a bit.
Yeah, that's a good one. Ed knew a lot of people in town.
So remember, this is not only open to our 2 regular viewers, but everybody else that's watching this program.
Yeah, well,
assuming there is anybody else.
Yeah, well, I guess I believed you when you told me, because you and Ed got a sense of humor that is pretty unique. And I was going to call a few people at the senior center, and I said, boy, I don't know if they're really pulling a prank on me, and Ed's going to pop out during the show behind a curtain or something, you know. So I said, I don't want to start alarming people, but
it would have been interesting to see him pop out, because remember, I walk with a cane, but he seriously needs it all the time he's walking.
Yeah, the last show we did, I saw him trying to get in the car. I asked him if he needed help, and he looked good though the last time, but I guess that's looking good is sometimes superficial. So he did this Porch Talk then was right after Let's Talk About It ended.
Yes.
So I think I went back to maybe 2018 to just see when Porch Talk started. So,
yeah,
so 4 or 5,
2018
you're going on your
sounds
5th
about
year.
right.
You're going on your 5th year. And what are the other shows that you do?
Well, I do, it used to be Corner Conversations, but we changed the title to Books and Banter.
Okay, I saw all the books here.
And
Books and
we
Banter.
are opening it up to anyone who writes. If you would like to come on the show and read something that you're writing, which I often do, they are invited to give me a call or send me an email, and we'll arrange for them to be on the show.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm impressed with your writing, Paul. The last
Thank
couple fictions, the last couple stories I read, really, I don't know. Do you ever plan on doing something with them?
I have done something with them.
Well, I know, but I mean,
published them on my website.
Yeah, I know, but you could, well,
Hey,
okay.
I have a lot of readership. I got an email one time from somebody in Germany, or was it Poland? I forget which.
Okay, from your website. Okay, I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, I see what you get. Okay.
One of my plays was performed in Shirley, Massachusetts, when my mother was living, and then it was performed again in Baja, California.
Did they ask you for?
Oh, yes.
They asked you for permission to?
Yeah.
They give you a stipend or?
No, I didn't ask for one.
Okay.
One of them, I asked her, how did you find it? Well, she was looking for a script for the 12 Dancing Princesses, and she went online, and this was at the top of the list.
Oh. Yeah.
So she wanted to make a change to it. He's advised not to drink the wine the princesses bring him. And they had to change that to grape juice.
Okay.
Because,
Grape juice. Well, hey, that's, when I was an altar boy, those early masses, they'd start off with I don't think the wine was that strong. The percentage of alcohol, I think, was pretty weak. But, every once in a while, some of the old priests from Poland would keep giving me the signal to put a little more in, more.
Well, actually, it's been my experience that the Catholic congregations only eat the wafer. The priest gets the wine.
Right. Well, no, that changed. There was people were also able to. I've been at, well, it's been years ago, and I'm sure they still, where people would drink out of the chalice. They'd wipe it, or they would dip the communion into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. In the '60s, when I was at the Marian Fathers, they were rock and roll in church. Drums, guitar, tambourines. I mean, they rocked that place. The place was rocking in the morning. Okay, and that was different coming from the Polish church with an organ, and then going down to, like I was at a concert at Tanglewood. I don't know if you've ever been up on Eden Hill, but that's quite a place, up on Eden Hill.
Well, my sister-in-law, Suzette, wanted to start a gospel choir. And she got very annoyed with the people who volunteered, and at one point shouted at them, "You sing like a bunch of white people."
Oh, okay.
And of course, the thing is, that's exactly what they were.
Yeah.
They come from a religious background where you behave yourself in church. You go in, you sit down, you recite the prayers that you're supposed to.
Yeah.
You read the Apostles' Creed, and
Yeah, not like down
I've
south.
often thought is that I would like to go into the back of the hymnals and replace the words in the Apostles' Creed with nonsense words and see if anybody notices, because all the effort goes into reading them in unison.
Yeah.
I believe in God the Father.
Yeah, they don't even
Maker of
know.
heaven and earth.
They know them by heart.
Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, yeah.
Blah 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 blah
Well, you-
blah 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 blah. Yeah.
You're talking about the Baptists down south. They rock the church too. I mean, they just. And then you got, I don't know what denomination where they talk in tongues. They're all going.
Oh, yes.
They're talking in a Beowulf. Supposedly the people understand or something. I don't know. That was always get me going. So I got to watch it. I don't want to be. I was gonna, that was one thing I was gonna do. When you were out, Ed would give me topics, and he'd say, "Tim, let's discuss this or this," And he never gave me this topic, but there was so many churches in North Adams. There must have been 13 or 16, North Adams and Adams, And I wasn't gonna. I was just gonna try to hone in on their mission and where they all, what they're trying to achieve.
The Protestant churches broke along theological lines. The Baptists did things one way, Methodists did them another, Presbyterians another, the Congregationalists did them another way, although they all started doing things pretty much the same way eventually.
Seventh-day Adventists, and there's some groups that that are not groups, religions. Let's call them. That's what we'd call them, a denomination, a religion. Everything from they're right up here on West Shaft Road on the corner of Route 2.
The Jehovah's Witnesses.
The Jehovah's, the Seventh-day Adventists. They have some pretty strict, rules that they follow. But I never, I talked to my sister a little. She's into that religion, pretty heavy duty. All the different, from going way back to how everything kind of changed and to get a handle on it. But I know we couldn't. I figured if we couldn't talk politics, religion was something that maybe wasn't. As long as I wasn't criticizing anything, I was more just trying to educate myself about all these different missions, these different churches.
Oh, yeah. Now, the Roman Catholic churches, they broke along, I lost the word again, ethnic lines. You know, the first Roman Catholic church in North Adams was St. Francis, and that was largely Irish and Scotch
St.
that
Francis.
started that.
That was the one up here, right across from Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, Dunkin' Donuts.
The next one that came along was St. Anthony's.
Italian.
You know, the Italians. And then there was the French Canadians who built Notre Dame. Although actually they came before the Italians, because when my father was born in 1905, St. Anthony's was still under construction. And he was baptized in the basement of Notre Dame, which is what the Italians were using until their own church was done.
Yeah, that was somewhere up in Adams with St. Stan's. There was the Polish community was in a certain part of the town, and they had the first Polish church was off of Murray Street, and then they were building. Well, there was always a conflict, seems like. But no, the Adams and North Adams, they're known for, well, steeple. What is it called? Steeple?
Yeah, steeples.
Steeples, bars
Steeple
and
City.
bars and churches, you know. So.
Oh, don't say bars and churches. I remember when Burger King opened, some nut wrote an angry letter to the Transcript about how North Adams used to be known as the Christmas tree city. Now we're going to be known as the beer and burger city.
Beer and burger.
Why?
Christmas
Because we have a new Hamburg joint?
What's the Christmas tree? What, they put up a Christmas tree?
No, we used to provide the Christmas tree for Boston.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I know, what is it, Times Square? They're always looking for one. Well, the city looks for them too. Where do they get them? People donate them.
I do
It's
not
a good way to
know.
get them removed from your yard if you want them, you know,
Oh, yeah.
instead of spending $1,500, $2,000 to bring in a tree crew, you know, have them come and cut it and pull it right out, you know. I mean, nice blue spruce or, you know, a nice looking symmetrical. They're always looking for that perfect tree, you know, the symmetrical. So, how we doing for time here, Mr. Paul?
Oh, I think we have we're almost ready to start getting time cues, another couple minutes. And by the way, the two of you out there that are watching, we really want you to call in and speak to us. Please, we need to know you're there. 664-4408.
Well, I'm trying to think. You guys, did you do a show you and Ed did a show? The last show Ed did?
No,
I did
it
one with you.
was a terrible downpour, and I asked Ed, do you want to cancel? And he said, sure.
Oh,
So
I
we
can't.
canceled.
Yeah, I was tied up. So actually, I was part of the last show with Ed. That makes me feel.
Yes.
I'll have to pull that one up again. I'm trying to think right now. The last show. Yeah, we talked about a bunch of stuff. Ed even told one of his jokes. Yeah. Okay. So all three of us did that. That's good. Well, hey, I tell you, Paul, I've enjoyed filling in for both of you. At first, it was going to be a few weeks for you. I think 4 or 6 weeks, and you were out for months.
Oh, yes.
Okay, you were out for you were out for 6 months, probably.
Yeah, well,
You know?
when I was in rehab, I was waiting for my backside to heal so that I was allowed to sit, because otherwise I was lounging in bed. And when they started trying to get me to stand up, the bottom would fall out from under my blood pressure. You know, I'd sit there on the edge of the bed, they take my blood pressure. All right, that's good. So now stand up, and you have to wait a couple minutes while the machine reboots before you can take your blood pressure again. And I'd stand up, and I'd be standing up for 30 seconds and
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
and back down, take my blood pressure. Ooh, that's low.
Wow.
So I finally got permission to sit, and then I could use a wheelchair and bomb around in the halls and annoy people and so on.
Well, my
And
blood.
I did some walking, with a walker, and they'd take me down the hall to the stairs, and we'd go in the stairwell, and I'd go up 3 and then come down 3.
Yeah, usually they get you walking. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I had a stint over in Albany, and they had me out, and the surgeon, and he's a good surgeon, he did not feel confident fixing my eye. So I'm seeing he sent me to a retinal specialist in Springfield. So next week I've got my surgery scheduled. So
Great.
yeah, I woke up and
you keep in touch,
Yeah,
so
I
we
will.
know how you're doing.
well, I'll be doing good. It's a small thing, It's nothing like what you went through. It's just
Yeah,
it's
but
just annoying.
they are an excellent hospital down there.
Yeah, well, where I'm going is I shouldn't say it's called Chestnut Center. They built it maybe 15 years ago, one of the highest tech medical facilities in New England. And it's specifically Chestnut Center for, I'm not sure if they did, no, they didn't do it. They did my hips, not in Chestnut Center. They do the eye surgery. And what's nice is you go down 91, you take exit 8, and you get on 116. And you've got all the medical facilities, the orthopedics, the retinal of New England. So, you go see them there, and then you just go right over to, Bay State, which Chestnut Center is right on Chestnut Street. So it's...
Yeah,
it's
they have a campus of several different buildings.
Yeah, it's a nice I was, like I said, I dealt with, just for my hip, I was out of there in less than 24 hours, and I dealt with 54 different people.
Wow.
Just for the hip, from the minute you walked in to this one took you here, this one did this one did this. It was, the food was good too. People don't like the food, but I had real mashed potatoes and roast beef, and my first meal was like a home cook. It was good. And I think I startled them a little when I said, geez, they asked me how it was. I said, oh, it's like a 5-star hotel here. And all of a sudden the kitchen wanted me to do all these surveys. Jeez, I was hungry.
Well, when I first got into rehab, it was a nursing home in Chicopee, and I had been there a few days when they were sending me back to the hospital.
Really?
Yeah, and I was back in the hospital for a couple of days. I don't know, I guess it was just observation, but then I got sent back. But before I got sent to the hospital, someone came in and wanted to know if I had anything to say about my stay and how I was being treated and so on for their
newsletter or something?
no, online, social media.
Okay, yeah.
And I was able to tell her.
This was Bay State? You were at Bay State?
I was
hospital?
at Bay State for the operation.
Okay.
But once, the little adventure that I had in ICU, that's a whole nother story. But then I got loaded in an ambulance and brought down to Chicopee.
Chicopee, okay.
And we're going over a bridge and we're jouncing around. He does know we want to get there alive, doesn't he? And apparently, the state runs the ambulances very stringently. You have to do this, this, and this, and this, but they don't take care of the bridges very well.
Yeah.
So all the bridges are.
Well, they're working on it. They just did Route 2 here, boy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
So, at any rate, I told her that I was extremely happy with the care I was getting. And I found, even in the short time I'd been there, there were people there that were working with me that I could love like family. And yeah, it really, well, except
That's a
for
pretty
my,
that's a pretty powerful
yeah,
statement, Paul.
except for my roommate, it was a very warm family feeling.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
My roommate was upset because it had been his room for so long, he didn't want a roommate.
Yeah, I didn't have a roommate down at Bay State. Well, I was only there, like I said, they got me out of there pretty quick. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Tell
I
me-
started out in a normal bed, and they got me up and walking very quickly to walk me into the men's room, which it was kind of pointless because I had a catheter in,
Yeah.
which got to be very painful after a while. So I was very happy when that came out. But then they moved me into a room across the hall, and they put me in what they call an air bed. This bed, it's got a fan in it.
In the
That's-
mattress?
In the mattress, and it's covered with sandbags. So they turn that on,
What the?
and it's good for your backside, apparently.
Oh, okay, because that's what you had an issue.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
of course, getting out of it was a three-ring circus because the edge of it is like the edge of this table. You know, so you have to get up on that. You know, essentially get up feet first and get over it.
Well, that's interesting because over in Latham, when they were prepping me for the anesthesia and my vitals, I was in actually a comfortable chair that
Oh,
you can.
yes.
And then they actually laid it down and brought me right into the operating room with that, and then wheeled it back out. So instead of a bed, a flat bed type thing, I was in a reclining chair. So
they did get me out of that bed once, and then I didn't want to get out again. They finally got the temperature adjusted just right, so it wasn't too hot, and it was actually very comfortable. And when the ambulance came to take me to rehab, I could either get out by myself or they could take me. I let them take me.
So how long were you down there total before you got home? From the day of the surgery?
Well, let's see. I went down the week before Thanksgiving. I was in a bed and breakfast overnight, which is right across the street from the hospital. And so I think it was, so that was November. I think it was March before I was released.
So you were there, November 19th was the show that you were getting operated on.
Yeah.
So let's just say December, January, February, March, good 4 months?
Yeah.
Wow. Jeez.
I should have stayed a bit longer, but I couldn't afford to.
Oh my God. Yeah, but that was at the Chicopee home. It wasn't in the
Yes,
hospital. It
that's
wasn't
right.
at Bay State. Okay. Wow.
A few times they sent me back to the emergency room. I never actually heard what that was for. And it was the biggest emergency room I've ever seen. They had, I think 5 or 6 suites of like 20 rooms each.
This is Bay State.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
emergency room.
Yeah, they do. There's a lot of shootings down there. There's a lot of people, a lot of bad boys down there.
So one night, I was waiting for the ambulance to come to take me back to Chicopee. And of course, you have to wait until one is available. And, there were mobs of people in there. I believe it was a Saturday night. And eventually, a nurse came over and asked me if there was anything I needed, I could use something to eat and a drink, and Oh, and the reason that she stopped and talked to me was because I was the only one who wasn't belly aching. I was just waiting patiently.
Did she give you the food though? Because that's
Yeah,
unusual.
yeah.
She gave you food?
Yeah,
In the emergency room?
She got me a sandwich and a cup of one of those cups of juice.
Oh, my last experience in the emergency room, a friend called and he was having, he didn't know what was going on. He said, he thought he was dying. Long story short, it was kidney stones. So, and I'm waiting in the emergency room with them for 3 hours and trying to keep, trying to keep them a little upbeat, and my jokes weren't going over. My humor was, he was looking at me, but it's pretty painful. They did the x-rays and you get the barbs, they start working their way down through that urethra, and it's like razor sharp. They say I've even heard doctors that have had it. You wake up 3, 4 in the morning and it's the most painful, excruciating thing you're gonna ever experience.
I don't know.
I don't know. I never had them, but
well, I had a little experience up at our hospital emergency room.
with stones.
No, it was an abscess in an, shall we say, embarrassing position.
Oh, okay.
And so I thought it was a hemorrhoid because it was in the right place. It was getting increasingly painful to sit upon. And one Sunday night, I decided I'm going to call my doctor first thing in the morning. And if he can see me, I'll go down and see him. If he can't, I'll go to the emergency room. Just before I left the house, it popped. And he took one look at it. Oh, that's not a hemorrhoid. That's a bleeding mass. You better go to the emergency room. I'll call it in. So I went up to the emergency room, and the doctor was visibly uncomfortable at having to deal with me.
Yeah.
He came in, took one look at it. Oh, that's not a hemorrhoid. That's an abscess. It's gonna hurt.
Oh.
And then he made the first of 6 trips to consult with the surgeon on call, because this might have to be done in the operating room. That didn't bother me. My own doctor had told me that. And in retrospect, I wish it had been.
Where was it, up here? Up North Adams?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I was waiting, and he came in with 2 young men that I thought were orderlies. They turned out to be EMTs. Are you up to dealing with some pain? Because this is gonna hurt.
They were gonna hold you down.
Or would you like some Demerol? Would I like anesthetic? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So they went out, and the nurse came in and gave me a shot of Demerol, the only pain medicine that causes pain. You get a burning sensation where the needle went in.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
So while I was enjoying that particular sensation, I called my mother, told her where I was, and would she bring up some extra clothing. They came in, got me into position, and he said, I'm going to give you a shot of Novocaine. Just jammed it right in. And then I said to him, well, you ought to give me twice as much, because it always takes twice as much to numb me up at the dentist.
Ay, what a spot.
Those were not my exact words.
You didn't sneeze during this at all, did
No,
you?
my exact words were, well, you ought to give me twat. And I didn't get any further than twat, because that's when he started cutting.
Okay.
Before either medication had a chance to kick in.
So the abscess.
So I was there.
I know what a hemorrhoid is, but an abscess, I guess an abscess is just an infection.
It's a growth. It grows and it pops. So, and then finally he said, I'm going to give you a prescription for painkiller, and boom, he was gone.
Yeah, well, that's what they gave the guy I was with. And actually, it was interesting, the people that came in during those 3 hours. women that burned their hands in the oven, a lot of construction workers. You know, just it was a. I could have wrote a little story and did a photo of it all, the people coming in, and I could see them all in pain. You know, I was the only one that wasn't in pain. And, you know, and some of them were sitting there for a couple hours, and you could tell that they were just wincing and, you know, and you didn't know what was the matter with them. But,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So my mother drove me down to Little's pharmacy. She went in to get the medication, and while I was sitting there in the car, I started getting drowsy. The Demerol was kicking in at last.
Yeah.
And I waited a couple of weeks to get the letter asking what my experience had been like. And finally, I called Paul Hopkins.
Yeah, he was the.
Yeah,
he
and
was the
he
man.
said they don't do that for every emergency room visit, but he told me who to write to. And I wrote her a letter giving her a play-by-play of what this had been like. And it took a while for it to go through the mill, but eventually it got to the head of emergency services. And as much as I would have loved to be a fly on the wall, he raked this idiot over the coals for doing such a stupid thing as to operate before the anesthetic has a chance to kick in.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you're talking anesthesia. It's scary. They use fentanyl. I mean, I hear of all these fentanyl deaths, and it's like that's what that stuff is fentanyl. Remember Michael Jackson? He kept telling his doctor to give him a little more. I mean, I was out. They said the last thing I said in an emergency, in the surgery room was, I'm glad you're doing this. I've waited a while. And when I woke up, they were all trying to tell me nothing happened, you know. And I think the first thing I said was, I didn't know what they were talking. I said, did they have to take a break?
Well, we have about a minute
yeah,
left.
yeah.
So, Joanne, if you would please put that page up. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We are doing this show in memory of Ed Morandi. He will be sorely missed. And let's do another little toast to Ed.
Okay, right here. Okay.
To you, Ed, Godspeed.
Yeah, Ed. Rest in peace, buddy. Oh.
And thank you very much, Joanne, for directing. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for being here, Tim.
Yeah, no, I've been.
You are welcome back almost any time.
Yeah, well, I'm good. It's nice. You can get this guy. I think you got lined up. Sounds good. But you know, I'm just glad that we all did the show with Ed. And Ed, we're gonna miss you. I'm still kind of in denial. Thought it was a joke. Thought it was a joke you guys were pulling on me, but I guess I'm wrong. You know, so.
I wish it was a joke.
Sorry.
Then he'd still be among us.
Joanne, sorry for your loss.
Take care. See you in 2 weeks.